After Canada and most probably the UK, Huawei is in for another jolt as the US has now moved to get Brazil to dump the Chinese 5G company. The South American country is all set to give away its 5G contracts to major European telecom players like Ericsson and Nokia, as the United States is in talks with the Brazilian government where it proposes to fund the 5G infrastructure under the condition that Brazil dumps Huawei. This comes as a big loss to the Chinese telecom giant, as the company had been laying the groundwork in the Brazilian market for the major part of the last 2 decades, and when it came to reaping the benefits of the hard work, it is set to lose the Brazilian market. Huawei had conducted 5G trials for all four major telecom companies of Brazil, namely Telefônica Brasil SA, Team Participações SA, América Móveis Claro, and Oi SA. The company had also promised to set up a factory in Sao Paulo by 2022 with an investment of $800 million. The Brazilian market was a sure shot for Huawei, but now with the US ready to fund infrastructure costs if Brazil moves to European players, the Huawei deal looks very unlikely. This means a huge loss for the Chinese telecom giant, which is already reeling from bans in numerous countries and is also engaged in chip wars with Taiwan. The US government has already told European countries to use Ericsson, Nokia and Samsung products instead of Huawei, which many other countries are expected to follow as they do not want to engage the Trump administration given the importance of American markets. Jair Bolsonaro, the president of Brazil, who looks up to Donald Trump and tries to emulate his style of governance, is often called Trump of the tropics in the media circuit. With coronavirus ravaging the Latin American country, Bolsonaro is increasingly becoming wary of the Chinese menace. Walking in the footsteps of Trump, Bolsonaro had even threatened that Brazil will quit the WHO over ideological bias. The sentiment stems purely from the fact that unholy collusion between China and WHO led to the coronavirus pandemic. Brazil has over 800,000 cases of coronavirus infection, the second highest in the world, with over 43,389 deaths already. Bolsonaro is under pressure to keep the Chinese at bay as they have become a large player in the Amazonian country. The anti-China sentiment is simmering in the country and it is evident from Eduardo Bolsonaro's statements. Eduardo is Jair Bolsonaro's influential politician's son, who many regard as Brazil's de facto foreign minister. Eduardo Bolsonaro had even retweeted a message that said, "The blame for the global coronavirus pandemic has a name and surname, the Chinese Communist Party." In the tweet, he even added that it is China's fault. Bolsonaro's son had even compared the coronavirus situation with Chernobyl and said, "Those who watched Chernobyl will understand what happened. Replace the nuclear plant with the coronavirus and the Soviet dictatorship with the Chinese." China of late has spread its tentacles deep in the Brazilian market, and the biggest casualty is the Amazon rainforest, colloquially called the lungs of the world. But now the United States can use the COVID-19 pandemic as an opportunity to completely weed out China from the South American country. China has become heavily reliant on Brazil's resources over the years, and therefore now is the time to give it a reality check beyond just the 5G telecom sector. Brazil's 80% of all soy exports now go to fatten up hogs in the People's Republic of China. Beijing buys most of Brazil's beef exports too, and it is importing timber from Brazil at a rate that may turn out to have a huge impact on many Brazilians and on the world. As of 2018, China had become the world's largest timber importer, followed by the United States, the European Union, and Japan. Owing to China's unquenchable thirst for natural resources, the Amazon rainforest witnessed deforestation of a record 829 square kilometers in May, the highest monthly level since 2015 when measurements first began to be taken. Environmentalists have warned that the effect of Chinese incursions in Brazil could impact the Amazons and in turn the entire planet. The world's largest rainforest plays a critical part in the fight against climate change. Its vegetation is capable of absorbing massive amounts of carbon emissions, and its size helps to curb the rise in the Earth's temperature. China and Brazil, whose bilateral ties were once peaking, have hit a major roadblock in the wake of the pandemic. Bolsonaro also needs to understand that China's market demand and manufacturing competitiveness risk straining the local Brazilian industries and jobs. China uses the economic mantra of creating a monopoly to cripple any country's economy. With Donald Trump jumping in the fray, Brazil needs to be cautiously freed from the dragon's grasp. China is the buyer, trader, lender, and builder in the Brazilian Amazon, which could have a potentially devastating effect for the country in the near future. Coronavirus has presented an opportunity for the Brazilians to get out of the Chinese clutch. Like Australia, Brazil needs to start diversifying its exports and not depend only on China.